Paul Kagame was born in Rwanda, but fled to Uganda as a child, where he became a member of the Ugandan Patriotic Army. He came to the limelight in Rwanda in 1994, after a genocide that claimed the lives of approximately 1 million people. He was the leader of the Rwandan Patriotic Front, a rebel group that successfully overthrew the government responsible for the horrific loss of human life. He came to power then, first as vice president and defense minister, and later as president in 2000. Many people around the world, and especially Africa, see him as a hero for bringing peace, stability, and spurring high economic growth in Rwanda. He is a shrewd politician who has managed to navigate his country through some very challenging times. Most Africans describe him as charismatic, fearless, and firm. In the eyes of the Western powers, however, he's been criticized for authoritarianism and human rights abuses, claims that they have clearly been unable to objectively substantiate.
While many have praised Kagame for reviving Rwanda after its brutal genocide, especially its economy, others have become increasingly concerned that the president and former rebel leader is turning the country into a dictatorship.
You've spoken a lot about democracy, and I would just like to point to the accusations of human rights abuses in terms of the elimination of your political opponents or the oppression of the press, and I would just like to hear your comments towards that.
In this video, we'll briefly analyze some reasons why President Kagame is often at loggerheads with the West. His defiance is not just about personal ambition or ideology. It's also rooted in Rwanda's history and the country's desire to be self-sufficient and independent. The first reason is what he terms as unfair criticism of his leadership.
For example, there was an Amnesty International wrote a report in the lead up to the 2017 election that talks about opposition politicians, journalists, human rights defenders being jailed, physically attacked, even killed.
I think you're interested in
forced into exile or silence. I'm just interested in your idea of that assessment of your country.
Raising your views to the audience so that you influence them by what you're
the European Union sees itself very much as an exporter of human rights and a defender of human rights.
Why can't you let me answer that?
I'm very interested in
Otherwise, Rwanda is completely different from what it was 25 years ago. In fact, maybe you need to be looking around in Europe. You are violating people's rights. When we have this problem of people being bundled and sent back to sink in the Mediterranean and so on, and so many people being mistreated in your own countries, why don't you talk about your human rights and stop just offloading everything?
Well, this is a development conversation, so
no,
in the context of development.
You are not the one to determine what conversation or what points to raise in any conversation. You are asking questions, this is what I'm saying. You are asking questions and you are giving yourself answers.
The West has on many occasions accused Kagame of human rights abuses, including the assassination of political opponents and the suppression of dissent, not to mention curtailing the freedom of the press. However, Kagame has denied these allegations, and there is no concrete evidence to support them. He argues that they are often based on outdated stereotypes of Africa and a lack of understanding of the complex realities on the ground in Rwanda. He has also pointed to the progress that Rwanda has made in areas like healthcare and education, arguing that these achievements are often swept aside by the Western media. Kagame asserts that the West is not genuinely concerned about human rights in Africa, but is instead using human rights as a pretext to meddle in Rwandan politics. He continues to be defiant because he believes that Rwanda is better off without its interference. It goes without saying that Rwanda has a long history of being exploited by the West, and Kagame is determined to ensure that his country never again becomes a puppet of the West. Another key factor, and perhaps which carries the biggest weight, is the infamous 1994 genocide, of which the international community largely failed to intervene and stop the massacre. This failure left a deep resentment towards them in Rwanda, with many feeling that they were abandoned in their time of need. This was a turning point for Kagame. As a member of the Tutsi minority, he lost over 800,000 members of his community. He's reiterated time and again that he believes the West did not do enough to prevent the ethnic cleansing, and this has influenced his approach to international relations.
Like the genocide here that that took place here in Rwanda, where 1 million people over were killed. Well, I remember, if your memory serves you well too, I'm not inventing anything. The debate that went on at the UN, it was like, you know, these developed rich countries, those who define values, simply took it like, these are just Africans killing each other. These debates were in the open. But you think that is true? You think the divide that actually led to this genocide was just a creation of Rwandans, not the people from the north who actually divided this country, told people to think of themselves as belonging to one ethnic group and the other to think as belonging to another ethnic group, and therefore they should kill each other. Not only are they different, but they should kill each other. Would you believe that?
He thus made it a priority to promote unity and reconciliation between the Tutsi and Hutu communities. He implemented policies such as community service and national service programs that aimed to promote a shared sense of national identity and reduce ethnic tensions. In addition to this, Kagame made it clear that he wanted Rwanda to be a self-sufficient and independent country that does not rely on Western countries for support. This has been evident in his policies, which have focused on building up Rwanda's economy and infrastructure. He has also been critical of aid programs from Western countries, arguing that they can be counterproductive and create dependency. It's important to understand that Kagame is a leader who prioritizes his country's interests above anything else. This means that he's not afraid to go against Western countries if he believes that it's in Rwanda's best interests. This has been particularly evident in his dealings with the International Criminal Court, ICC, which he has accused of being biased against African leaders. He has been critical of the court for its focus on African leaders, arguing that it unfairly targets them while ignoring atrocities committed by leaders in other parts of the world. He has also accused it of being a tool of Western imperialism for targeting leaders who refuse to toe the line and follow Western interests. Another cause of contention is over allegations of Rwanda's support for M23 rebels in neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. The EU and the US have laid blame on Kagame for well over a decade, but they have failed to provide concrete evidence to prove their case. Kagame has strongly refuted these claims, and rightly so. He insists that it is high time that the unwarranted vilification of Rwanda stopped. Kagame's defiance of the West has impacted Rwanda's relationships with other countries in one way or another. On the one hand, Kagame's approach has earned him a lot of respect in Africa and internationally, with many seeing him as a strong leader who is willing to stand up to the West. This has also allowed Rwanda to forge closer ties with countries like China, which have offered economic and political support without the strings attached that often come with Western aid. However, it's also created tensions with some Western countries that he's accused of not practicing what they preach. While Rwanda has maintained diplomatic relations with Western countries, their unwarranted criticism of him is unlikely to change his stand. He is a strong and determined leader, and he has refused to be intimidated by them. He is determined to build a prosperous and democratic Rwanda, and he is not going to let the West stand in his way. Besides, he enjoys tremendous support from the Rwandan people and has the support of China and Russia, which are rising powers that are challenging the dominance of the West. The West has been unable to dislodge Kagame from power, and it is unlikely to be able to do so in the future.
You really need to stop this superiority complex nonsense about human rights. You think you are the only ones who respect human rights, or others it's about violating human rights. No, we've fought for human rights and freedoms of our people much better and more than anyone, including you people who keep talking about this nonsense. where we have taken our country from and where it is now speaks for itself. The rest of the stories just comes from this complex.